It's the eye of the tiger. It's the thrill of the fight. Rising up to the something of our rivals. Challenge of our rivals. Hello, and welcome to the next episode of Matt and Todd Go to the Movies. The podcast where Matt and Todd see a movie with our special guest, Eden Cummins, and we talk about it. And we try to give you some information, maybe a little bit about the movie, but we also try to answer that important question: should you see this movie? I am Todd Domer.
I'm Matt Malloy, and welcome to another episode of Matt and Todd Go to the Movies. And yes, we have our friend Eden with us, who is participating in the Rocky Balboa, where we're watching all 8 Rocky movies. And
in fairness, I feel like I have to mention that Rocky Balboa is a trademark from Les Gaynor. I did not come up with that name.
Oh, well.
He did.
I wasn't aware of that until now, so we'll have to pay royalties to him. Thanks a lot, Todd.
Well, only if we tell him.
Well, I think we just did.
He'll find out on the Less Than Todd 500 hour.
Obviously, he's a great fan of our podcast and listens to every episode. So
Sure.
I listened to the one I was on.
Nice. I listen to most of them. So back on track here. We are reviewing Rocky 3, giving our gut reactions to Rocky 3 today, which features the song Eye of the Tiger quite heavily throughout the movie, in not only song form, but in advice given to Rocky, is that he must have the Eye of the Tiger, keep the Eye of the Tiger, etc. So Rocky 3 has many of the same players as Rocky 1 and 2. You've got your Sylvester Stallone. You've got your Carl Weathers is making another appearance as Apollo Creed. You've got your Talia Shire.
There we go.
Playing Adrian, Rocky's wife. And, Burgess Meredith is in this, although his character gets killed off.
Spoiler alert!
That's not a spoiler. Mr. T is in this as the main antagonist. Hulk Hogan is in this as a wrestler turned boxer for a charity event. And I'll mention Tony Burton is in this as Duke!
You forgot Burt Young.
Burt Young is in this as Paulie.
There you go.
Yes.
I think we'd all like to forget Paulie.
Well, first movie where Paulie's not an absolutely disgusting human being. He's not great, but I don't think he, in this movie, has topped anything that... He hasn't said anything worse than what he's already said in the first 2 movies. I'd say a little bit lighter. Not great, a little bit lighter.
He changed his venue from wanting to beat women to heavy racism. So,
Yes.
I guess pick your cause?
I think if you made this movie today with those lines in it that he delivered, your movie would be shot down quite quickly. But I will agree with you that it's probably not as bad as some of the things he said and acted out in previous movies. So there's your cast. I don't think I forgot anyone, but if I did, speak up.
Well, you did forget Burt Young. I did.
Well, I did, yes. But if I didn't forget anyone else...
I think we're good.
Good. Okay, so...
We've gotten all the racism out of the way. And
Right. So what happens in Rocky 3? Rocky 3 picks up pretty close to the end of where Rocky 2 was. And we learn... this is a spoiler for Rocky 2, but I don't care in this podcast about Rocky 3.
Yep.
At the end of Rocky 2, Rocky becomes heavyweight champion of the world. And so the first part of this movie is you get some title defense sequences, and he fights 10 different guys and beats them all. And while this is going on, this new boxer, Clubber Lang, played by Mr. T, comes on the scene, and he's having his own impressive run at the same time. And then at the end of of that run of title defenses, they schedule this bout against Clubber Lang. So that's on the table. Rocky is training for this fight. He's training with his old trainer Mickey, and they get all ready for the fight. And then there's a health problem that Mickey has, and he goes down just before the fight. Doesn't die yet, which I've already revealed that he does die, which may be a spoiler, I guess. I guess you could consider it that. But he's not dead. Rocky goes forward and has the fight with Clubber Lang, and unfortunately loses pretty handily to Clubber. And then the next part of the movie is Burgess Meredith's character Mickey dying, and Rocky kind of coming to terms with that and realizing that he's probably not going to box anymore. And then after the funeral, he goes to the old gym that Mickey owned, and who's there but Apollo Creed is there in the shadows and proposes a partnership where Apollo trains Rocky in the ways of his own talented boxing style, and in order for Rocky to face Clubber Lang and defeat him. So Rocky has to make a decision there. He decides to proceed with this, and they go back to the roots of Apollo Creed. Actually, they go to his earliest gym, and they do all these old school training techniques featuring many runs on the beach, and all of this leads up to another fight with Clubber Lang, where I won't reveal what happens in this podcast.
But stay tuned.
But stay tuned for Rocky IV's podcast, where I'm sure I'll have to reveal it. But yeah, that's kind of what happens. So, Todd, your thoughts on our third installment of the Rocky series, Rocky III?
Well, this Rocky movie has a fair amount of missteps, in my opinion. It has long been one of my least favorite Rocky movies. But I like Clubber Lang as a character and a villain, so it's like there's good to it for sure. But there's just a lot of campiness in this movie. It's like, and honestly, this movie loses some of the like very special like writing and dialogue from the previous movies. It's just not apparent in this movie. It's not here. It almost kind of feels like Stallone was like, well, I want to make Rocky smart now. Like, I want to make him a thinker instead of who he actually is, and it's just, not as good. So there's, again, I think we've settled into the characters at this point. Everyone knows their character. They're doing pretty good with it. I mean, there's a ton of campiness, but I still think Stallone does, pretty well as Rocky. Everyone does a good job. But to me, the breakout star of this movie is Mr. T, without a doubt. Like, he's just such a good antagonist. Antagonist, right? Yeah. So, I still like this movie. I still think everyone should see it because there's some very, very much a lot of iconic moments in this movie. I don't know how the general public feels about them, but this is where Hulkamania started for Hulk Hogan, was this blockbuster that he did that put him on the map. And then not too much longer after this, Hulk Hogan is the Hulkamaniac, and that whole thing takes to the skies. So that would not happen if it weren't for this movie. It's a nice, like, now we see it a lot nowadays, but I think when this is at 82, when this movie came out, I can't think of many instances where the two, for all intents and purposes, the two enemies in the story come together to work together to, like, move on to the next level, or like to help take out a mutual enemy or whatever. So that happens a lot nowadays in movies, but when this came out, I don't think it happened as much. So it's a nice little, like, evolution of the story of Rocky and Apollo. Two movies, they're at each other's throat and stuff like that. Especially in 2, Apollo is like very much like, I gotta destroy this guy, and then here comes this movie. He sees where Rocky fell short, and he's like, I think I can help that guy get back to where he should be. Another big minus to me is the training montage in this movie. It's just not as good as what we've seen so far, in my opinion. It's a lot of, like, I guess it's a lot of good, maybe good fundamental boxing learning. Like, there's a lot of footwork involved, and it's got more boxing elements for sure, but not enough sledgehammers in a junkyard and all the stuff that you come to really expect a Rocky training montage to have.
A lot of thighs.
A lot of thighs.
Men
a lot of
running on the beach.
Yeah, high socks, short shorts, cut off tank tops.
We are very much heading into plus territory.
Yeah. So, yeah. So I still like this movie. I still think everyone should see this movie. But I will say this is the first of, like, a couple of missteps that I think the Rocky franchise has. So this is the first time I really feel like you start to see, a chink in the armor from what we're used to. But everyone should still see this movie. Don't come talk to me about this movie unless you've seen it, because I don't want to waste my time. And that's me.
Fair enough.
Eden, how do you feel?
So runtime on this one is about 20 minutes shorter
Yeah.
than the other two, and it shows. Like, it feels tighter. Like, they're not lingering on. There's, like, nowhere where they really, like, linger. It just kind of keeps moving.
Yeah.
There's absolutely some campy scenes. There's absolutely some stuff that they could have, even shortened up more. But I really like that it had a story, it told the story, and then it was good with the story. Like, it just kind of moved it through. As we were watching it, we were discussing that this is the same year that First Blood came out, and there seems to very much be a theme of working through PTSD and, like, the effects of violence on someone's psyche, and trying to hit these really high notes that I think the other film did a bit better. But it's really refreshing to see. It's really refreshing to see that human side of the Rocky character who, yells out, "I'm afraid," and who has, like, this crisis of faith in a more genuine way than I think it was handled in 2. And I think that I loved seeing Apollo come in, and again, their relationship felt very earned and worth it. Like, you could kind of see the respect blossom into friendship, blossom into a partnership. Like, it made a lot of sense. And I really liked that aspect. I liked that these two men were peers and needed each other to overcome this challenge. And both had a reason to be there. Both really, like, just needed this. And I think that, Mr. T really is just the heart and soul of the whole thing. He pushes it real hard. He plays it incredibly well. Paulie is absolutely a dirtbag human. Continues to be so. I would like to see him get a little more comeuppance for that, but he did it at least for once. A character shot him down and was like, "Hey, don't be a jerk face," and that was nice. But yeah, I liked it. It's definitely the beginning of the movies for guys who like movies, like, run of the Rocky franchise, and it's not quite, doesn't have quite as much heart, but I think is still a very worthy successor to the franchise. Doesn't feel like it should have been direct to video. Absolutely felt like it should be included. It is part of the canon feels like it belongs there.
Matt,
Well,
how do you feel?
I feel fine by this movie. I agree with a lot of what you said, Eden. I think that the relationship between Apollo and Rocky is very kind of cool to watch, and maybe even I would even call it important for the time that it kind of came out. In that their relationship was one of equals, and for a black man and a white man to have that kind of equal relationship, I feel like when this movie came out, that was probably less prevalent than you would see today.
I think it beats Lethal Weapon by like almost a decade.
Yeah. So I think I like that aspect, and I'm glad you brought that out. It did feel shorter than the other movies, which it was, so that checks out. I too think that it was the right length, and the story that it told, it did a fine job with. I feel like the story itself was not as good as maybe the first two. I did also, Eden, you mentioned the scene on the beach where his Rocky's wife Adrian is confronting him and saying, "Tell me the truth. What's really bothering you?" And he breaks and says, "I'm afraid of losing things." And yeah, I think that also is kind of an important thing for a masculine person to come out and say that, which I think is pretty rare for that time period. So those are two things that I really did like. I felt like Eye of the Tiger was a little bit overused. They really beat you over the head with it. I get that it was a popular song then, and is still used quite frequently in important montages in many movies. But they do kind of overplay it, I think. So I'll say that I enjoyed myself watching this movie, and yeah, if you like Rocky movies, I think you need to see this one. It's part of the show. And I do think it matches well with the first two, but I think it's a little step down from those two as far as, and you mentioned this, Todd, that sort of the weirdness of Rocky's character really disappears in this movie. You don't get the awkward lines, and yeah, it does seem like, well, Rocky's smart now. What happened? Rocky's brain is less relaxed, or more relaxed. I don't know. Less relaxed. Yeah.
More active.
More stressed.
Yes.
More stressed.
So that's where I land. I'd say, if you haven't seen it, go for it.
Nice.
I want to fact correct myself real quick. Lethal Weapon 1 would come out 5 years later. 48 Hours, however, came out in the same year. Eddie Murphy and Nick Nolte.
Okay.
And then I also...
those two are not on equal playing fields
No.
as far as the relationship between the white cop and the black prisoner.
Well, look. Yeah, and then I also just wanted to... I forgot to mention that I really liked the training montage in this one. I think it was my favorite of them so far, because you really see the transformation in a way that you don't in the other ones. I think the other montages, he starts like really good at stuff and then becomes phenomenal at stuff. And this one, you see him be bad, which is a thing that you don't really see in the other movies. Like he does train up from a new fight style to like what he's learning here, and you can kind of see the progression beginning to end. And I really appreciated that.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, that was the other thing I forgot to say.
It's okay. It shows the different kind of boxers of the first two movies. Rocky's just like basically he takes punishment during his training, to gear him up to take punishment in the ring. Whereas this one, he gets taught speed and correct form and stuff like that because he's actually got a box. Like he's not
just a ham and egger.
Yeah, he can't stand toe to toe with Clubber.
Yeah, Duke's here. He's going to make sure he gets it right.
Duke's got it covered.
Rocky dodges for the first time in his life. It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's
and blocks his head at several moments.
It's absurd. It's as if he knows what he's doing, which is not something we've seen before.
Weird, yeah. So, and the sound effects are taken to a whole nother level in this movie that we haven't mentioned. But I say go watch it and experience it for yourself because they are kind of magical.
Yes.
They can either be incredibly distracting or heighten the experience. Just depends on who you are. So, well, how many Thunder Lips would you give this movie? 0 to 5. 0 being the worst because then you have no lips of thunder. 5 being the best because then you got 5 Thunder Lips. So... which, you know, depending on how you feel about Hulk Hogan and where he's at in life right now, you know, that's a hard one. But, so, Eden?
Yeah. Scale really throws me. I'm gonna call this a 3-2. I think it is weaker than the other ones. And so I feel bad rating it better than the 3-5 I've used traditionally.
You mean rating it worse?
Sorry, yeah. I would feel bad rating it like better than the 3-5 that I've been using.
Fair.
Or on par, but yeah, I think 3-2. I think that it's like not that much worse. I think that there's definitely stuff that I liked about it. I think I like the direction we're heading with the story. I think the story is very good and interesting and like a very good continuation of this guy's life and his journey. But it definitely suffers from, we're making money on these. Let's take them as less of an art piece and more of a, let's continue to make money. And I think that shows.
Well, the dream is dead that you're going to be getting a 3.5 to every movie. This is kind of what I was hoping for. So, Matt?
Well...
How do you feel about this old Rocky Balboa?
I am... Well, first I'm just going to say, because I don't think we've connected this quite clearly, that Thunder Lips is the name of Hulk Hogan's character in this movie.
Correct.
And so Rocky has a battle with him for charity. It's like
the boxer versus the wrestler.
Right, and it's like a wrestling / boxing exhibition match. So I'm gonna go a little bit lower. I'm gonna say that this is an above average movie, but I don't think it's a lot above average. So I'm gonna go with a 2.7 for this one. I feel like I said, I feel like this is a bit of a step down from the other two movies. I still enjoyed myself. I do think that Mr. T kind of steals the show as the antagonist. And yeah, if you like these movies, you should watch it for sure. And anyone can watch this. It's all good.
Gotcha.
Todd?
Well, for the first time in our Rocky Balboa, I'm going to come below 4.
Okay.
I'm going to be at a 3.5. And, you know, I don't know what else I can say. We pretty much covered what we liked and didn't like, but, you know, it just, for me, the campiness was, like, a little hard to handle, but the story's still good. There's some good lessons to learn in here. But I honestly, watching the first two and then watching this one makes me just miss the little comedic gold in the writing. So, yeah, still, obviously if you're a Rocky fan or if you know of Rocky and you're like, I want to watch all of them, you should watch this movie. There's no reason not to, for sure.
Yep.
It's integral. This story is, as integral as the first two when it comes to later movies. So you can't watch one without watching them all, I feel. So that's going to be a common thing you probably hear from us. you should watch this movie.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
So that's where I'm at.
Okay. Well, I'll mention this tidbit of trivia that we haven't mentioned to this point, and that is that Sylvester Stallone has written all 3 of the movies that we've seen so far, and directed the last 2, which I feel like is pretty impressive since he was also the main star in the movie. So these are his babies, and pretty impressive, I think.
And a
to
pretty
pull that
busy
off.
man for 1982 because he wrote Rambo too, First Blood. Yeah.
First Blood.
I mean, it's off of a book, but he still wrote the script for it.
Right.
So
Kudos there. Well,
we also forgot to mention that Frank Stallone is back in this movie. He plays another singer. I don't know if he's supposed to be the same singer. It's just labeled as singer. But there he is.
and he's moved from a street corner into inside of a boxing training center.
Yeah,
where he's
which is
doing
in a
performance.
hotel, which was kind of weird to me. But I guess they rented out the ballroom and put a ring in it.
Yeah. All right.
He was looking classy, though. He had a suit on and everything.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to more Frank Stallone updates as we go through.
I don't know if you're going to get any past this movie.
Well, you never know.
True.
We'll scan the
Could be
credits.
wrong, yeah.
All right, well, that's going to wrap up this episode of Matt and Todd Go to the Movies with special guest Eden Cummins, and we reviewed Rocky 3, and our average rating was a 3.1 and a third.
Whoa.
So for math nerds, you've got a 3 repeating, okay? It's awesome in the decimal system. But yeah, 3.1 and a third out of 5, and that is still a very good rating for this podcast. So go check out Rocky 3 if you have never seen it. It's a little slice of 1982, done very well. And yes, we will continue on making podcasts in the Rocky Balboa theme as we strive to watch them all. Thank you for listening, listeners. Keep listening. We'll keep making podcasts. And we'll see you next time.
It's the eye of the... I'm just joking. Everyone calm down. Da-da-da-da.
Da-da.
Da-da-da.
Da-da-da.